Thanks to everyone who's joining us this evening. I'm Tara Deegan with the New York City Department of Environmental Protection's Bureau of Public Affairs and Communications. Today, I am also serving as the New York City Water Board's hearing officer for today's public hearing on proposed water rates that would take effect beginning July 1st. I want to thank Mercy University for this venue available to us, for making this venue available to us. This meeting is being recorded, and an audio recording and transcript of the meeting will be made available on the board's website at nyc.gov/nycwaterboard. We've also placed several documents in the official record, including a notice appointing me as hearing officer, verified copies of the public notices placed in the newspapers, a draft of the rate schedule listing the rates and billing policies for the coming year, a public information booklet describing proposed rates, and copies of the written testimony received by the board so far. The draft rate schedule and the public information booklet are also available on the board's website, as is a copy of the presentation you will be hearing today. The program for today includes two sections. First, senior representatives from DEP will present the proposed water rates for the fiscal year beginning July 1st. Then members of the public will have an opportunity to make a statement. The purpose for this hearing is to allow the public to present their viewpoints and opinions on the proposed rates. We are here to listen, to take notes, and to compile a record of testimony. This is not intended to be a debate, and we won't be able to respond directly to questions or engage in an open discussion here. If you wish to speak but haven't yet registered for a speaking slot, you still have an opportunity to do so. Just see the DEP staff at the table with the computer and printer. They will add you to the list of people scheduled to speak today. If you would like to provide testimony today but prefer not to speak in the microphone, you can provide us with written testimony either today or anytime up until June 7th. Testimony can be sent to the board by sending an email to nycwaterboard@dep.nyc.gov or by ground mail to 59-17 Junction Boulevard, 8th floor, Flushing, New York, 11373. We have several representatives, one representative that is coming from the Water Board today, Chairman Alfonso Carney. From DEP and the board's professional staff, we are also joined by DEP's Chief Financial Officer, Joseph Mirren, and Water Board Treasurer, Omar Christine. Before we get started, we're just going to get started, and you'll hear a presentation from DEP.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you for those members of the public that have joined us today. And I will note that Chair Carney is in transit, so he's likely today to be delayed. We expect him to be here within the next 20 minutes or so. So I'll paraphrase what he says, in that this is, an open forum for people to come forth and, give their opinions and their expression of what they have to say for the water rate that's being proposed to the Water Board. So we welcome, as Tara said, either, spoken testimony or written testimony. And the board does take into consideration and will evaluate all of the testimony they do hear when the board convenes on June 13th to consider and determine whether they will proceed with the proposed rate increase. I'm going to start the presentation with some recent DEP highlights. The first slide shows that DEP is a summarization of DEP's 2023 water quality report, and it highlights the quality and safety of the city's drinking water. I will note that there are copies of this out in the front lobby, so if anyone would like to pick one up, they could from there. Next slide. Next, I would like to point out the agency is currently on track to having its lowest year on record in terms of water main breaks. And we have here just the visual of some of our team, including Deputy Commissioner Georgilis and Costos Georgilis, in the picture there, as well as some of the work we do. And I will highlight the bar graph, which shows that since 2003 to now, 2024, year to date, we're on target to have reduced the number of water main breaks that the city has seen down from over 600 to just below, just about at 400 or so. So it's a seen that. So we're very proud of the continued work that we made to ensure that the water main breaks are being contained. Next slide. I would like to also, highlight that construction work continues to be DEP's core, and the agency is on track to reach $3 billion in capital commitment as part of its $29 billion 10-year capital program. This has a graph showing the proposed capital program over the next 5 years and through 2028, as well as the breakdown of our capital components, the largest being sewers for $9.2 billion, followed by water pollution control, that's our wastewater treatment plants, $8.9 billion, water distribution, that's primarily in-city water transmission and the water mains, which is $6.4 billion, water supply and transmission, which is mainly our upstate reservoirs and other assets that convey water into the city, at $3.7 billion, and then a small component for equipment that supports all of those operations. As a component of that capital program, I will point out that the agency's climate and resiliency staff are leading an evaluation of the stormwater resilience across New York City in the face of increasing frequency and severe storm events. We have some graphics there showing, the flooding that some neighborhoods we try to mitigate this as much as possible. One such measure being the picture on the bottom part of the slide, which shows one of our green infrastructure components, which is a rain garden, which helps to mitigate the flow of stormwater and ease its inflow into the water system. We're looking at this very carefully because, as we know, we're seeing a significant change in the climate, which has led to more flooding and more severe flooding, which is even more problematic. It could be while we don't have it happening citywide, we have this intensity of rainstorms that happen, in microcosms sometimes, and that can cause very, serious conditions in particular neighborhoods. So we've been making a strong effort in going through and determining where those are and putting in measures that can be able to enhance stormwater controls, short of having to build out the whole sewer system, which can be very expensive. So we're trying to balance between the expense of the capital program while also being sure that we can put in measures that can mitigate the impact of storms. Next slide. Another key project milestone we're achieving is the construction of DEP's $1.9 billion Pensacola Water Tunnel project. This is a critical redundancy project to be able to convey water from the Pensacola Reservoir to the CAT-LUV treatment plant. And this is going to ensure redundancy in water transmission so that if there was any critical failure in the other tunnel that services the CAT-LUV, we would be able to get the water to there and then from there down to the city. So this is a project that is just starting to get underway. We expect to have some form of construction contracts out for bid next year. Next. Also related to water transmission, work on the Roundabout West Branch bypass tunnel is complete, and preparatory work for the Delaware Aqueduct repairs is underway for a temporary repair shutdown later this year. This has been a multi-year project to address a leak of the tunnel that goes under the Hudson River. So we had to build a parallel tunnel around our West Branch bypass tunnel, which is now completed as stated, and now we need to continue that construction to hook up the two ends of the tunnel, the water tunnels that feed that bypass tunnel. And so we're going to have to shut down the water service for 3 to 4 months during the fall, starting in October this year, and then starting it up once those connections are done. So that means that we're going to have to put it under, a reliance on the east of Hudson side of the system, which is the Crone system, while we take the west of Hudson system down to be able to do that critical component of construction on that tunnel. Next, we have important improvements to Hillview Reservoir, also funded as part of the April 2024 capital plan update. Hillview is the central reservoir that we use for distribution of water once it comes downstate on the Yonkers border, and it then makes the transmission down from the Hillview Reservoir to the distribution network within the city. There are various improvements that we've been planning for a number of years. Most critically is updating the chemical additions facilities that are probably been dating back a number of years, decades So the part of that is going to be able to do that, and that's going to enable us to, that's going in conjunction with the Kensico tunnel, and we're going to have to be making other critical construction elements to Hillview as we get ready for considering at what point and how we're going to do a cover over the Hillview Reservoir. Next, we have a number of programs where new playgrounds equipped with green infrastructure will absorb more than 3.5 million gallons of precipitation that would otherwise flow into sewer rivers. Again, this gets into stormwater control management, where we're looking at alternative strategies other than sewer systems to be able to find ways to both mitigate and then retain and then disperse stormwater, as opposed to having it be able to accumulate or flood in certain neighborhoods. So these are one of the mechanisms where we will retrofit playgrounds, we'll retrofit playgrounds in certain areas that when you can use them when there is not a storm event, then when you do have a storm event occur, you would be able to then have the playground and act as a retention facility, and then the water dissipate from there. Is it still working okay? It seems to be all right, so.
You know what? Use this.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'll take care of this.
Hello? Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. All right, moving on. So that's highlights of many of the capital improvements that are planned or are underway already for the system. Next, we'll talk about rate proposal and financial updates. DEP is recommending an 8.5% New York City water rate increase for fiscal year 2025. The proposed rate increase ensures the system will continue to produce the revenue necessary to support strong bond ratings, an especially important consideration in light of the interest rate volatility of the last several years. It also aligns rates with consumer and utility inflation trends. The 10-year average water rate increase is below the New York City metro rate of inflation for the past few years, and that's those two, as you can see, the dotted lines on there comparing the inflation to what our average rate increase has been. It is comparable to the 8 to 9% rate increases some other large cities in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region are proposing or have adopted. It is comparable to recent regulatory rate cases approved, which have included mid to high single-digit increases. Those are mainly for gas and electric utilities. Next slide. Revenue protection and customer service are focused for DEP, with the 2023 amnesty program supplemented by independent revenue collection efforts. DEP in 2023 had an amnesty program that resulted in $105 million in increased customer payments and delivered $22 million in affordability benefits to eligible DEP customers due to interest rate forgiveness. In addition, water shutoffs notices began in the end of 2023. More than 600 properties received notices, resulting in $3 million of incremental cash revenue. BCS, the Bureau of Customer Service, is partnering with outside counsel to assist with collecting past due balances for accounts with large amounts owed, including multifamily properties. So these are the proactive things we've been trying to do to make sure that we're collecting as much revenue as possible. However, even with these efforts, have significantly lower delinquent accounts. We have chronic delinquency and the rate increases, higher interest rates, and which have resulted in growing accounts receivable balance, with a balance well over $1 billion now. Through mid-April, revenue was $3.52 billion. I'm sorry, that's the wrong slide. Through May, revenues were $3.71 billion, 2% more than fiscal year 2023, but it's still 1% below what the projection was for this year. So again, we need to consider, as we go forward, in thinking about or considering what we have to raise revenue for the upcoming year. If we're short on revenue this year, we need to catch up with that going into fiscal year 2025. What I want to talk about next is lien sales. While recently city tax lien sales did not include water and sewer receivables, The next cycle of reauthorization of lien sale legislation may include water and sewer bills. The Adams administration is working with City Council to authorize lien sales, which has been an effective tool in the past for purposes of managing past due water and sewer receivables. Since 2019, the city's lien sale has not included water and sewer arrears, whereas previous lien sales included a combination of liens secured by property taxes, water and sewer receivables, and emergency repair charges. The sales of lien during previous fiscal years, together with the pre-sale notification process, resulted in substantial revenues to the system and supported lower required rate increases. Without the lien sale, other categories of revenue protection are available, including negotiating installment agreements with customers, enforcing property liens outside the lien sale process, and reliance on the court system. A reauthorization of liens may include program changes and exemptions to protect vulnerable populations. So we're working very diligently with the council and their team to be able to get these lien sales reauthorized. So it'll really help us in terms of helping to mitigate rates if it does go through. Next. What we have on the next slide is a breakdown of the proposed rate increase. The proposed rate increase reflects a combination of factors which together point to a recommendation for a larger rate increase than in recent years. Key drivers of the proposed change in rates: previously unforecasted rental payment requested by the administration in fiscal years 24 and 2025. That's 3.1% of the 8.5%. O&M increases for system needs, emphasizing stormwater programs, that's 0.2%. Operating expense budget inflation due primarily to personnel cost increases. This is collective bargaining and fringe benefits. The city recently settled long outstanding collective bargaining agreements with both the unions that are also the employees that work for TAP, so that also drove up the need for raising rates. That's 0.8% of the rate increase. Then the largest equal component to the rental payment is the debt service related to the ongoing expanded capital program at 3.1%. And finally, there's revenue decline and some slight interest rate factors. As perhaps people don't know, but for the system, conservation continues to be good for New Yorkers, and as people build and put in new equipment such as low flow toilets, more efficient washing machines and dishwashers, those help mitigate the need for more water. However, the system's operating expenses are relatively fixed and have very little correlations if the use of water goes down. So if we're losing 1% of the usage on water use each year, we have to make that up by also factoring into what the revenue needs are going to be. So that adds to the need for a rate increase. What we will point out is that residential use charges in fiscal year 2025 will continue remaining lower than the average charge in other large cities. We do an annual survey of our rate as it compares to other 30 large city average. We've been doing this for a number of years with our rate consultant. And so based on 70,000 gallons per year for the average single family home, in 2024, our charges were $1,088 per residential home. The 30-city average was $1,372. So our rates are 20% or 20.7% lower than those 30-city average. We don't yet, of course, have the numbers for 2025, but we expect even with the rate increase that we should, since many of these cities are seeing similar increases, we should continue to be in that range of being below the average. Now, as to the impact, residential customers with an average level of water use will see a moderate increase in their monthly bill with the 8.5% rate increase. So the chart here shows the various categories of our main customer usage. Average single family charge, 70,000 gallons per year. Right now it's $1,088 on the average. It's expected to go $1,181 in 2025. So that's an increase of $7.71, slightly less than $100 a year. Average multifamily meter charge, 52,000 gallons per year. currently at $808. That will go up to $877 per year. That's a monthly increase of $5.73. Multi-conservation programs per residential unit, that's $11.84 per year, going to $12.85, and that's an increase of $8.39 per month. Minimum charge properties using less than 75 gallons per day, that rate is $463 per year, and that's still being held steady at $463. And we believe this is a very effective tool because a number of these people that are in the minimum charge are our customers. Those are the number of seniors or which is, usually have, small usage if it's just one or two of them in their home. So it does help some of those that are on fixed incomes. Next slide is a summarization of the preliminary financial outlook, which reflects a $4.4 billion annual budget, including debt service, O&M, and other system costs. So this just lays out more details in terms of the dollars that relate to what the 8.5% is, getting for the system. So we look at what the costs are going to be of the system, and then we adjust to make sure that the rate will cover that. So we need to collect $4.4 billion in fiscal year 2025. So that's $274 million in what we needed in fiscal year 2024. That's going to be $2 billion of that will go to utility operations and maintenance expenses. $1.74 billion will go to debt service, net of roll forwards and escrow. $325 will be used for capital market funds, PAYGO, which is the equivalent of cash finance capital expenses. Then we have $124 million for the water board and water authorities administrative costs. Those are primarily for the various contracts and other services that the water board and both the water finance authority obtain, such as for investment counsel, bond offerings, and things of that nature. And finally, the last line is the rental payment is estimated to be $289 million in fiscal year 2025 and $145 million in fiscal year 2024. This line is highlighted because this is both two adds to the budget for this year and partly where the driver behind that 3.1% component of the 8.5% rate increase. I will point out the proposed rate increase does support high priority O&M and capital construction projects. The budget will cover key additions to the capital program of $683 million. This is improvements to the Hillview Reservoir, which we talked about. It'll be improvements to customer billing and water conservation technology. This is for meters and automatic meter reading units that are needed for the Bureau customer service. There are the costs related to the final repairs works related to the Delaware Aqueduct, and there's stormwater management, which includes 4 pumping station upgrades. And as noted, the operation and maintenance incremental increase of $11 million will fund new initiatives in stormwater resilience. Omar, I'll turn these next two over to you.
I will try to be brief, just to let our audience have a chance to speak. The next couple slides really address the fact that we borrow part of the money that we need to on our construction program, and that introduces the fact that we have exposure to variability in interest rates in borrowing markets. So this slide makes 2 points. One, interest rates have been bouncing around more than this typical. We've seen some very low rates and then rapid resurgence off rates since the pandemic, and that means we have more trouble than we have in the past forecasting where rates will be because this kind of volatility is unusual. Second, that said, the trend appears to be one of rising interest rates, and that's a headwind in terms of greater costs. So that's to those who aren't familiar, that's kind of what's going on in the interest rate market. The next slide is a little bit, it's a slide where we do like to brag a little bit, and then we also express concern at the same time. When we sell our bonds, we get a letter grade from the rating agencies, A, B, C, D, and so forth. A is good, and so on, down is not as good. We have very high ratings that lets us sell bonds at low rates of interest. It means there's lots of demand for our bonds, but it means we also have something to protect and defend. And that in order to sustain those high ratings, we need to have a continued strong financial profile. That is part of the reason for the rating increase. going on here. This slide is a little bit in tension with the previous two slides because that need to maintain a strong financial profile is a little bit odd with the fact that we try to make the rates affordable and to make sure that customers aren't overly burdened with unreasonable charges. We generally do a good job of that, but we also cater to a large, diverse audience, and that means what's affordable to one type of property is not affordable to another. So what we've done, and this is a big change over the last 8 to 10 years, is we've been very thoughtful about introducing a series of customer assistance programs that target smaller properties, that target affordable multifamilies, and get them bill credits or other forms of assistance based on need, based on availability of funding. We run now is probably the largest customer assistance program that's recurring in the country. We have $30 million a year of bill credits for affordable properties, small, middle-income, owner-occupied properties. And that's something we're very proud of. It's a change from, it went back to 10 years ago, we didn't have an explicit customer assistance program. And the last slide is a deep dive on that $30 million. This audience is probably less interested. We're proposing to reauthorize the programs in the same dollar amounts on the same terms as we had last year. The small property owner program is an auto enroll program done in partnership with the finance department, the human resources department. The multifamily program is an application-based program where landlords have to apply, we screen them, and we sort them based on most of least affordable. We issue credits above the cutoff. Those programs will both be substantially unchanged next year from this year under the proposal, but the total funding between the two bill credit programs will be $26 million. The last program is, the very bottom is a sort of supplemental program called the leak forgiveness program. The short of that program is if you experience a leak or high water usage that gets fixed, when that second bill is issued to your house with reduced water consumption, you send it in and request leak forgiveness, you can waive half the cost of the bill. And that can be the average bill credit that comes out of the program is several $1,000s. And the reason for that is simply that small properties through plumbing fixtures or infrared usage need a lot of water very quickly. If it's identified, and this is an encouragement to sign up for your electronic billing, we have a leak alert system to check your ITP account, and you should sign up for monthly billing. You get the information quickly, you see that high usage, fix it, you send it in, we can rebate a lot of what could potentially be a large dollar amount as that leak gets fixed. And Joe, I'm going to give it back to you.
Thank you, Omar. This is a relation to the multi-conservation program. So the agency is exploring pathways to more closely align the MCP rate with affordability and conservation goals. So the multifamily conservation program rate was introduced to provide billing certainty for affordable properties while incentivizing conservation-oriented building improvements. This started, and some buildings have initiated this, others are still out of compliance. There was an allowance in that for the board to assess the surcharge on those buildings that are in compliance. We have had a lot of discussions internally and with those impacted buildings, and there's been some concerns about this, especially about how effective this will be as an affordability measure. So the agency is requesting of the board another deferral of this implementation because we want to take the next 6 months to be able to look at this situation, find a more holistic approach that can really target affordability, bring it to the board so that they can make a deliberative thought process about how best to handle this and consider alternatives to what the current thing is. So that's again a request that we'll be making of the board, when we propose with the rate proposal that comes out on June 13th. That ends this section of the presentation. I would like to acknowledge that Chair Alfonso Carney is here. I don't know if you want to come up or later, sir. You're more than welcome to. But I will turn it over to Tara since we do have members of the public as well that do want to speak.
Joseph, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for being here.
Sorry that I'm late.
Okay, so we will turn this over to the public testimony portion of the hearing. And we have one registered speaker as of now, and I apologize if I don't say your name right. Carmel Urbayas?
Close enough.
Okay, please come up.
You got it. Yeah, so my name is Carmel Urbayas, for the record. I've lived in the Bronx since 2005, and I have some prepared remarks, but the presentation was informative, so I may add to it. So thank you for the informative presentation and for allowing the Bronx residents and any resident from any borough to speak in any public hearing. Appreciate that. As someone who grew up in apartments and lived in apartments for over 40 years, I have that experience, and I speak for people in rental properties who, even if the landlord, you know, he or she can increase the rent based on their costs going up. So I have that as my background, but I also currently own a single-family home in the Bronx, in the northeastern section of the Bronx on the border with Yonkers. So, with both of those experiences, you know, I stand in opposition to the water rate hike, not to exceed 8.5% that would go into effect on July 1, 2024. I understand that the New York City's mayor's decision to charge a rental payment to use the city sewers and pipes is a contributing factor here, and I disagree with that. I stand in opposition with that. I stand in opposition with passing on this charge from the mayor's office to DEP, basically to the residents. I just think that doesn't make sense. In this climate, I would have hoped that the mayor wouldn't have done that, and maybe the rate hike proposal wouldn't have been as high. So particularly as a New York State resident, as someone who's lived in the Bronx since 2005, I just think passing that on to residents is just not a good thing. What else? So also, you mentioned the climate that we're living in briefly here, and it's great that some things are out, like not as bad as inflation, but I have to mention the climate. Like New York Times, Bloomberg, Gothamist, everybody recently is reporting that New York City rents are so high that only 5% are affordable for the median salary in New York City. And any increase just pushes residents to the margins. Myself, my friends, and others. I spoke to 5 friends before the hearing. 3 own single-family properties in the Bronx. 1 owns a co-op in the Bronx, and 1 rents. We're all against this, and they couldn't be here today. What else? The other thing that this is in light of, it's not related to you guys, it's not your division, it's not your agency, but Con Ed has a rate hike that the governor and the mayor approved August 2023, and then recently the total's 13.3%, and then by next year, January, it'll go up to 14.7%. Right, so every kind of energy is going up. The cost of oil, electricity, gas, and water. And I just think it's unsustainable in New York City. And we want residents to stay, we want people to live in the city, and I think that's unsustainable. 2 things from your presentation that I thought were really cool is the breakdown of the percent. 0.2% goes to storm management. I'm pro that. Let's not have lots of flooding, and let's have more rain things. And 0.8% for collective bargaining, staff, you need to staff the agency, that's only 1%, right? So in that breakdown, I could get behind a 1%, increase. I know that's probably not gonna happen, but that's what I wanna say about that. So thank you. Just the note on inflation. Everything is up, right? So you go to the grocery store and there are simple things that are up 200, 300%. And so the things that you cannot cut out of your life, like drinking water, washing your dishes, going to the bathroom and flushing the toilet, picking up whatever your favorite items are from the grocery store, are all higher. I would really ask that the board consider a lower rate hike. We're probably going to get one. It's probably going to be 8.5, but I do speak in opposition of that. And from the breakdown, I can support 1%. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have any other speakers tonight? Thank you for your testimony. This concludes our hearing. I'll just go through quickly the calendar of events that we've had so far. We've currently had Staten Island public hearing, Manhattan public hearing, we have one in Queens, Bronx is tonight. Our last and final public hearing is in Brooklyn. We're on Tuesday, June 4th at St. Francis College at 179 Livingston Street, 5th floor, Brooklyn, at 6 p.m. And then the water board again will meet on June 13th to vote on the final rate. And just to recap the presentation, the in-city proposed rate increase is at 8.5% beginning on July 1st, 2024. Public hearings, as I said, have been taking place from between May 28th and the last one again is June 4th in Brooklyn. The board vote will be on June 13th. Testimony, comments, or questions regarding the proposed rate, the hearings, and any prepared testimony, as well as requests to register to speak at the hearings should be directed to NYC Water Board at nycwaterboard@dep.nyc.gov or by phone at 718-595-3591 or by mail at 59-17 Junction Boulevard, 8th floor, Flushing, New York, 11373. Again, the vote is coming up on June 13th and if adopted by the board, the new rates would take effect on July 1st. Thank you.